Hi everyone, I'm Angeline and I'm here today with my colleague Meena. We're both analysts at ISIS Malaysia.
And we're also part of the organizing committee of the 37th Asia-Pacific Roundtable. And we're going to be spending the next few minutes talking about the theme of the APR this year, which is crisis in an interregnum.
That's right. When we were kind of conceptualizing the theme and the program for this year's roundtable, we were trying to imagine what global politics would be like in the next year. And it was hard to do, right? Because there was so much uncertainty.
That's right, it
It was
was.
so hard to imagine. And I know that uncertainty has been quite a common theme in recent years, especially since the pandemic. But I don't know, I felt like this was different. This was different. It felt like we were looking ahead at a year of chaos.
I mean, no light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and I mean, there was so much chaos already happening around us, right? So the Gaza conflict was just emerging. The Ukraine war was showing no signs of abating. And the situation in Myanmar, it was raising a lot more questions than answers. And there was just... I felt strongly that this theme of crisis really needed to be part of the 37th
Absolutely.
APR. Yeah, which brings us next to this idea of interregnum. And believe me, it was very challenging to pitch this term because, I mean, let's face it, first off, it's a mouthful. And second off, it's not something that you hear in everyday conversation. I don't think many people know this word.
No, and I know it was so difficult to sell it to our colleagues as well. I mean, like, even in terms of pronunciation, I remember many days where we had to say the word really slowly. Interregnum.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, those were the days.
Okay, so Meena, I'm gonna cheekily throw you under the spotlight here. Could you try to explain plainly, if possible, what interregnum means? I think
Sure.
you're better at it than me.
Plainly. Okay, sure. I guess it's essentially a period of discontinuity. Or I guess in most simple terms, it's a gap, right? And it's usually characterized by, as you've mentioned earlier, by chaos and a lack of structure.
A lack of structure. Kind of like anarchy, would you say?
More like a breakdown of sorts. So I guess the international system is no longer working, and, it's a very dim situation to be in. But, now this isn't the first time, though, that humanity is in an interregnum. So empires have risen and fallen, all while experiencing many, many interregnums. And, nation states have also flourished and crumbled between interregnums as well. And I guess, most importantly, this term interregnum, it also features prominently in IR theory.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's a real word.
That's right. We didn't make it up.
We didn't
right?
make it up.
And we were also determined to sort of normalize its usage, considering how we now live in an interregnum. So I guess what we're witnessing firsthand now is global politics stirring in crisis after crisis.
Yeah, that's right.
And, as we've mentioned, it's not new, but this time it's rather different because structures, mechanisms, and institutions are no longer responding to them.
Yeah.
So, even if they try to respond, nothing comes out of it.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating.
It really is.
Watching world affairs, it's incredibly frustrating these days.
That's right. It's unending chaos. It's so hopeless. It's a hopeless feeling. And the challenge of achieving a sort of global homeostasis of sorts, this is an interregnum. So on that note, we also asked the question, so why aren't institutions sort of adequately responding to these crises anymore? What has changed? Angeline, your take.
My take.
Yeah.
That's a really big question, and I don't feel very equipped to answer considering my young life versus hundreds of years of global politics.
That's true.
Okay, you're putting me on the spot. I guess in my perspective, it's like a feeling of intensification, right? There's so much pressure these
That's right,
days.
yeah.
There's so much pressure on everyone, and I feel like everyone's just lost faith in the system and institutions, and it's just not working, like you were mentioning earlier.
That's right. I guess I'll hold on to that word you used, pressure. So there is this, intense pressure building up. And, I guess this really brought us to really trying very hard to identify these global flashpoints as a product of all this pressure, right? And this is, and these global flashpoints, what has led to this crisis in an interregnum. So some that came to mind, of course, I'm sure you remember that, this unabated major power competition, exacerbated, of course, by a breakdown in multilateral mechanisms and also Bretton Woods institutions. Something that, we've had a lot of faith in the past.
That has also kept a lot of stability.
That's
in
right.
the
That's
international
right.
system.
That's
Yeah.
right. And so others were, global inequality, We see climate change. I mean, we've moved on from global warming. It's global boiling right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course disruptions due to technology and AI, and so these were some of the global flashpoints we could think of immediately, and of course these were daunting to say the least.
Yeah. So there you have it. That's a quick explanation on the theme crisis in an interregnum. And I think in trying to keep to the theme, we also were very intent, right, in planning all of plenary sessions to reflect this in the APR. And I wanted it to specifically have this sense of crisis and urgency.
Something that we're quite proud of, actually. Right.
That there is crisis and urgency in global
Oh,
politics.
no, the themes. I meant the themes, right?
The
The theme and the sessions.
Yeah. So true to every APR, there's definitely going to be a session on major power competition. And this year, we've decided to focus on crisis management, particularly on cooperation and mitigation, which I think is a more hopeful, a more onward looking, and maybe a more pragmatic spin than the usual just talking about the state of major power rivalry, what it is, and how everyone's feeling about it, right?
That's right. And also in that context, it was also important for us to understand ASEAN's outlook and approach to this era of crisis. So Plenary 2 specifically looks at ASEAN in 2025 and beyond. And incidentally, this is very important to us back home because Malaysia will chair ASEAN next year after a decade. And, in 2015, when we last chaired ASEAN, we had the Kuala Lumpur Declaration on the establishment of the ASEAN community. And of course, we appreciate how much the world has changed since then.
Yeah, I think probably the ASEAN panel is one that I'm looking forward to most. Like, as you've said, Malaysia is going to take on the chairmanship in 2025. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what the discussions will say about the hopes and aspirations of Malaysia as chair, as well as what should be in the post-2025 ASEAN vision.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, so other kinds of sessions that we have planned as well. A very interesting one this year about the developments in the Middle East and everything that's happening in that region right now. I'm sure that that's just going to be a hot, hot panel. And of course, no APR is complete without a session on the economy. Yep. So this year we're going to be talking about mega trends that's shaping the global economy.
That's right. I'm personally interested in that one because finally we'll be able to answer questions on global supply chains and protectionism, which is an increasingly very prominent theme in the global economy as well. So and finally, I guess as what we hope would be a fitting culmination of the theme of this year's conference, we will delve deeper into a unique phenomenon that has shaped the emerging regional order, and that is the rise of regional powers, something that's very relevant to us in Southeast Asia as well. So how can small and middle powers exert their interests and agency in this interregnum? Are existing multilateral mechanisms still a viable way of exercising agency? So these are some of the questions we hope to get the answer to in the upcoming APR, and honestly, this would be my favorite panel.
All right, so that is the 37th APR theme and some of the sessions explained. The APR will be hosted on the 4th to 6th of June here in Kuala Lumpur. You can find out more at our website, isis.org.my/APR37.